Today is your sister's birthday. We can't come. My mother said that 3 hours after I told her my husband and my 2 children were dead. That sentence, then 7 seconds of silence on the phone before she ended the call. I stood in the hospital hallway still wearing the scrubs I had clocked in with that morning, and it felt like the world had frozen. My husband Jake, my daughter Lily, my son Noah, all gone, and my mother chose a birthday cake over their coffins. But that phone call did not destroy me. It set me free. Because 6 months later, one newspaper headline about what I did with $5 million Jake secretly left behind sent my whole family into a panic they never recovered from. What my family still does not understand is that skipping that funeral did not just cost them a daughter. It costs them everything. Before I continue, please take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you truly connect with this story. Leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from and what time it is there. I always like knowing who is listening. My name is Bianca Myers. I am 34 years old, and I work as an ER nurse in Hartford, Connecticut. Let me take you back to a cold evening in November, the night I lost everything and finally saw my family for who they really were. Before that night, my life was simple and good. Not flashy, not social media perfect, just peaceful and steady. Jake and I lived in a 3-bedroom colonial house near Route 4 in Farmington, about 20 minutes outside Hartford. He worked as a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company in Glastonbury. I worked night shifts at Mercy General. We bought our house 2 years earlier with a small down payment and a lot of hope for the future. Lily was 6 years old. She had Jake's brown eyes and my stubborn spirit. Noah was 4. He carried a stuffed bear named Captain everywhere he went. The grocery store, the bathtub, church on Sundays. Captain even had his own tiny seat at the kitchen table. Jake and I met because he cut his hand badly while helping a coworker move a heavy desk. He walked into my ER at 2 in the morning, bleeding through a dish towel, and asked if the stitches would leave a cool scar. I told him probably not. He asked for my number anyway. That was Jake.com/kind, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order after hearing it once, and who always warmed up your car before you had to leave for work in the Ashford family. My family, by birth, I was the invisible one. The oldest daughter who never made trouble, never asked for money, never needed saving. I paid my own way through nursing school. I planned my own wedding, a small courthouse ceremony because my parents said they did not have the money for anything bigger. That same year, they somehow had the money for Megan's sweet 16, 70 guests, a DJ, a photographer, a rented hall. Every holiday, I cooked, I cleaned. I brought gifts for everyone. My mother, Linda, never once asked how my shifts were going or whether Lily liked kindergarten. Her phone calls always began the same way. What are you bringing for dinner? Jake noticed it before I did. One Thanksgiving, while we were loading the car after I had spent 9 hours cooking in my mother's kitchen, he looked at me and said, "Your family treats you like hired help, Bianca." I answered the way I always did. They are just like that. It is fine. It was not fine. But I was not ready to admit that. And Jake, quiet and thoughtful Jake, had already started preparing for the day I would finally see the truth. November 14th, a Tuesday. I was halfway through my shift when the charge nurse touched my shoulder. "Bianca, break room." Now, I knew that tone. I had used it myself. The careful, steady voice we save for the worst news a person can hear. I followed her down the hallway. My legs felt weak before my mind understood why. 2 Connecticut state troopers were standing inside the break room. One held his hat against his chest. The other could not meet my eyes. "Mrs. Myers." There has been an accident en route for 4. Jake had picked Lily and Noah up from swim lessons at the YMCA. They were 7 minutes from home. A man named Gerald Fenton, 41 years old, blood alcohol level twice the legal limit, ran a red light at 53 miles per hour and crashed into the passenger side of our Honda Accord. Jake died at the scene. Lily died in the ambulance. Noah made it to Mercy General, my hospital, but I was in the break room when they brought him in. He was gone before I reached the trauma bay. 3 minutes. That is what the trooper said. 3 minutes between the break room and Noah's last breath. I do not remember sitting down. I remember the floor, the cold linoleum under my hands, the bright fluorescent light buzzing above me as if nothing had changed. My co-worker Angela knelt beside me. She did not speak. She just held my hand tightly. At some point, I do not know how much time had passed, I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I called my mother. It was instinct. When everything falls apart, you call your mom. The phone rang 4 times. I heard music in the background. Laughter. Megan singing badly and loudly. Then my mother answered. "Hello, Bianca. Make it quick. We are about to cut the cake." "Mom." My voice broke on the word. "Jake is dead. Lily and Noah are dead. I need you." Silence. 3 seconds. 5. I could hear the party behind her. Someone tapping. A glass. A child laughing. Then my mother's voice lowered. The way it always did when she did not want other people to hear something unpleasant. "Bianca, I hear you. That is awful. But today is Megan's birthday. We have 30 people here. We cannot just leave." I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. Certain I had misunderstood. "Mom, my husband and my children are gone." "I know, honey. But what do you expect me to do right now?" "Megan will be heartbroken if we leave her party. Call your friend from the hospital. She can help you. I will call you tomorrow." "Okay," she ended the call. 9:47 p.m., 3 minutes and 12 seconds. No, because I stared at the call log for nearly an hour. I called my father next. Donald Ashford answered on the second ring. I could hear the screen door creak as he stepped outside. Wind brushed against the phone. "Dad, did Mom tell you?" A short pause. "Yeah, kiddo. She mentioned it. We will come see you next week. Stay strong." He hung up. 1 call left. "Megan, it went to voicemail." I left a message, though I do not remember what I said. 2 hours later, she texted back. "Mom told me. So sorry. Call me tomorrow." I sat on that hospital floor until my supervisor found me. At midnight, 3 calls. 3 chances for my family to show up. 3 doors closed. And that was the moment I finally understood something I had spent 34 years trying not to see. My family did not forget me. They were not confused. They were not too shocked to act. They looked at the worst night of my life, looked at a sheet cake and balloons, and made a choice. The funeral was on Saturday, November 18th. It rained all day. A cold, steady Connecticut rain that turned the cemetery grass into mud. Pastor Grace Bennett from Greenfield Community Church led the service. She had baptized both Lily and Noah. When I told her what happened, she drove to my house at 6 in the morning with coffee and a binder full of options. She did not ask about my parents. She only said, "Tell me what they loved." Lily loved butterflies. Noah loved Captain. Jake loved Bruce Springsteen. So we played If I Should Fall Behind while rain hit the tent above us, and I stood in front of 3 caskets, 1 full size and 2 heartbreakingly small, trying to say goodbye to my entire world. My coworkers came. Angela, Denise, Marcus, Dr. Patel. From the ER, they wore black scrubs under their coats because they came straight from work. Tom Whitfield, Jake's college roommate, flew in from Boston on a red-eye flight. He stood next to me during the whole service, holding an umbrella over my head even though his own jacket was soaked. I placed Captain inside Noah's casket. I clipped Lily's butterfly barrette onto her pillow. I touched Jake's hand one last time and whispered words that will stay between us forever. Then I looked at the front row. The chairs saved for family. Empty. 4 white folding chairs covered in rainwater. Not one ash fur there. Pastor Grace followed my eyes. She squeezed my wrist gently. She did not need to say anything. After the burial, Tom helped me carry flowers to the car. He stopped beside the driver's door and looked at me with an expression I will never forget. Confusion mixed with anger. "Bianca, where is your family?" I shook my head. That was all I could do. Tom watched me for a long moment, rain running down his face. He nodded once. He did not ask again, but I could see it in his eyes. He would not forget this. 1 week after the funeral, my mother called. I almost did not answer. But 34 years of habit is hard to break in 7 days. My thumb pressed the green button before my mind could stop it. "Bianca, Thanksgiving is next Thursday. Are you bringing the casserole? Megan wants the green bean one." I held the phone away from my ear and looked at it like the screen might somehow change into something that actually made sense. 3 coffins, 7 days, and my mother was asking about bringing a casserole. "Mom, I just buried my family." "I know. Honey, that's exactly why you need to be around people. Come for Thanksgiving. It will be good for you. Sitting alone in that house isn't healthy." Her voice sounded warm, caring, completely reasonable. If someone had heard only her side of the call, they would think she was a loving mother trying to help her grieving daughter. That was the thing about Linda Ashford. She always sounded like the hero of the story. But I could hear what was underneath the sweetness. Come to Thanksgiving, bring the casserole, stand in the kitchen, serve the family, smile nicely, perform your role. And by the time dessert was served, the funeral would be treated like a small sad event from last month. Neatly filed away between Megan's dental payments and Dad's garage renovation. "I can't do that, Mom. Don't be dramatic. We are your family." I ended the call. No long explanation, no debate. It was the first time in my life I had done that. She called back 4 times. I watched the screen light up and let it ring. She left a voicemail. "Bianca, this is ridiculous. You cannot just shut everyone out. Call me back." I stood in my kitchen, Jake's coffee cup still sitting on the counter, Lily's drawing of a purple horse still taped to the fridge, Noah's booster seat still pushed up to the table, and I understood something with complete clarity. If I went back to that Thanksgiving table, I would never truly leave it again. I would spend the rest of my life serving people who could not even show up for my children's funeral. That was not going to happen. Not anymore. I typed one message into the family group chat. No capital letters, no dramatic punctuation, just simple words. "I need space. Please don't contact me. I will reach out when I am ready." Then I placed the phone face down and waited. Linda's reply came in less than 2 minutes. "This is unacceptable. You do not get to disappear from this family," Donald wrote 2 minutes later. "Your mother is very upset. Please call her." Megan texted about an hour after that. "Wow, okay, guess. I don't have a sister anymore." "Cool." I blocked all 3 numbers. I muted the group chat. I sat on the edge of my bed in a house that still smelled like Jake's aftershave and let the quiet wrap around me like falling snow. The next morning, I called a therapist. Dr. Ellen Shaw had an office on Asylum Avenue, an unfortunate name for a grief counselor's address, but she came highly recommended. The room was small, with 2 soft chairs and tissue boxers placed everywhere you could possibly reach. During our first meeting, she asked one question that took the air out of my lungs. When was the last time your family truly showed up for you? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. I thought about birthdays, graduations, Lily's first steps, Noah's first word. I thought about who had been there and who had not. The answer sat heavy in my chest like a stone. Silence filled the room. Dr. Shaw nodded slowly. She did not push me to speak. We will start there, she said gently. I returned to work the following week. My coworkers covered for me without hesitation. Angela switched shifts. Marcus handled my patient charts. Dr. Patel assigned me easier cases until I felt steady again. One night, a drunk driving victim was brought in. 19 years old. Broken pelvis, internal bleeding. I made it to the supply closet before my legs gave out beneath me. I slid down the wall and pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. Tom Whitfield called that same week. Just checking in. How are you? Really? I am surviving, I told him. That is enough for now. Jake's lawyer also called. Tom said his name was Robert Calloway. He needs to speak with you about some paperwork Jake completed. Do you know him? I didn't. I did not even know Jake had a lawyer. Robert Calloway's office was on the 2nd floor of a brick building in West Hartford, above a bakery that made the entire stairwell smell like fresh sourdough bread. He was a tall man in his mid-50s, wearing reading glasses and offering a handshake that felt steady and reassuring. Jake and I went to Yukon together, he explained as he sat down. We stayed in touch over the years. He came to see me about 8 months before the accident. 8 months. That would have been March. Around the same time Jake had started locking his home office door for an hour every Sunday evening. I had assumed he was catching up on work. Robert slid a large envelope across the desk toward me. Jake purchased a term life insurance policy 8 months before the accident. $5 million. You are the only beneficiary. He paused carefully. Because the policy was less than 2 years old, the insurance company completed a routine investigation. It took about 4 months, but everything was confirmed. Jake was in excellent health when he applied. The accident was entirely the other driver's fault. There was no question about the claim. The funds are ready to be released. I did not move. The number did not make sense at first. It felt too large, too distant, like hearing a foreign word I did not understand. 5 million. He was earning good money at the firm. Excellent health. Non-smoker. 35 years old. The premiums were manageable. He set it up specifically because Robert paused, choosing his words carefully. He told me about your family situation, Bianca, not details. Just that if something happened to him, you would be alone. He said, if something happens to me, she will be by herself. Her family will not help her. I need to know she is protected. There was a letter inside the envelope. Jake's handwriting. The familiar left-handed curve I used to tease him about. I did not read it there in the office. That felt too exposed. But Robert told me the last line. Jake asked me to share this, if you seemed unsure. You always take care of everyone else. Let me take care of you this one final time. I pressed the envelope against my chest and cried. Not the empty, shocked crying from the hospital floor. This was different. This felt warm. This was the kind of grief that comes from being loved deeply by someone who understood you completely. Jake knew. He always knew that the people who were supposed to protect me never truly would. He could not save himself, but he had reached across death to save me. I did not touch the money for weeks after it was transferred. It sat quietly in an account while I stared at the ceiling each night, trying to understand what a person is supposed to do with $5 million that arrived because her family died. Spending it on myself felt wrong. Saving it felt empty. The number felt like a ghost. Jake-shaped, Lily-shaped, Noah-shaped. I could not look at it. Without seeing their faces, Dr. Shaw was the one who gently opened the question. What would Jake want you to do with this? I thought about it for a long time. I thought about the 19-year-old drunk driving victim in my emergency room. About his mother sitting in the waiting area for 6 hours in the same clothes she had been wearing when police knocked on her door. I thought about the nights after Jake's funeral when I could not sleep and searched online for financial help for families of drunk driving victims in Connecticut and found almost nothing. I thought about sitting alone at the cemetery in the rain, feeling like the world had moved on without me. No family should go through what I went through alone, I said quietly. The idea formed slowly and then all at once. A foundation. Not just a memorial plaque or a park bench with their names on it. Something active. Something useful. Something that paid for funerals when families could not afford them. Something that covered rent for the first 3 months when Chuck makes it impossible to think clearly. Something that connected survivors with grief counselors who actually returned phone calls. I called Robert that evening. I want to start a foundation in Jake's name, and Lily's, and Noah's. I will set it up properly, he said. We will file for 501c3 status. We will do this the right way. I kept a portion of the money for myself, enough to pay off the mortgage. Build a safety fund. Breathe without fear. Jake would have insisted on that. He was practical and thoughtful. And I was an ER nurse. I understood triage. I understood priorities. What I did not realize was that this quiet decision, made privately in a therapist's office on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, would eventually appear on the front page of a newspaper. And that front page would land on a kitchen table in Glastonbury, where a woman named Linda Ashford would discover that the daughter she had dismissed had become someone impossible to ignore. While I was building the foundation, the truth was building momentum of its own. In a town like Farmington, nothing stays hidden for long. People talk at the diner. They talk after church services. They talk while standing in line at the grocery store. And the question that kept coming up over coffee, over shared casseroles, over choir practice at Greenfield Community Church was simple. Where was Bianca's family? Pastor Grace never said anything publicly. She did not need to. She had stood at a funeral with 3 caskets and an empty front row. People noticed that. They remembered. It started quietly. Linda was at a church potluck in January when Barbara Hensley from the Women's Fellowship group asked gently, "How is Bianca doing? We heard about the accident. It is just terrible." My mother gave her church smile, the one that looked kind but required nothing from her. She is doing fine. She just needs some time. Then Carol Dunning, our neighbor of 22 years, the woman who had watched me grow from a child into an adult, asked the question my mother was not ready to hear. "Were you at the funeral, Linda? I did not see you there. We had a family commitment." That day, Carol looked directly at her. She did not nod. She did not smile. She simply looked at her for a long moment. Then she picked up her plate and walked to another table without another word. Megan felt the shift too. At the salon, conversations paused when she entered the room. Friends who used to gossip freely suddenly chose safer topics. Someone finally asked her quietly, Why weren't you there for your sister? She laughed it off at first, said there were complications, scheduling issues, misunderstandings. But the truth does not disappear just because you avoid it. It lingers in the air. It waits in the silence after a question. And slowly, piece by piece, the town began to understand what I had known my entire life. The story Linda had always told about being the devoted mother did not match the empty seats at that funeral. And empty seats are louder than words. Her friends began asking about me. She handed them the same story every time. My sister is being dramatic. She cut us off for no reason at all. That explanation worked until someone asked the next question. Wait, you didn't go to the funeral? Megan never had a good reply for that. One evening, my mother called my father into the kitchen. I know this because Donald told me later in a text message I never expected to receive. Linda stood at the counter with her arms folded tight across her chest, her jaw stiff. We need to get Bianca back before this gets worse. People are talking. Not we need to say sorry, not we were wrong. Not our grandchildren are gone and we never said goodbye. People are talking. That was what mattered to her. The image, the version of events, the performance. Linda Ashford had spent 61 years guiding the family story, and for the first time, someone else was holding the pen. By March, 2 months after the accident, the foundation papers were almost finished. Robert had submitted the 501c3 application. I wrote the mission statement at my kitchen table at 2 a.m, still wearing my scrubs. Jake's letter stood against the salt shaker beside me like it was watching. I had chosen a name, the Mears Family Foundation. I also had a clear purpose. And for the first time since November, I woke up with a reason to get out of bed that was more than duty. It was more than survival. At the same time, my mother was busy too. Linda had connections, church friends, women from the neighborhood. A cousin in Glastonbury who heard things from a paralegal who knew a financial planner. News traveled the way it always does in small-town Connecticut. Slowly at first, then suddenly everywhere. Someone mentioned at a fellowship dinner that Bianca Myers had received a large insurance payment. Someone else mentioned the word foundation. By the time the information reached Linda, it had been cleaned up and shaped into something almost tempting. Jake left her money, Linda told my father. A lot of it. How much? Donald asked. Enough that she's starting some kind of charity? I can picture my father in that moment, sitting in his recliner with a beer on the armrests, staring at the muted television, doing the math. Not the emotional math. The financial math. Maybe we should call her, he said. But Linda understood more than a simple phone call. She knew I had blocked them, so she went to Pastor Grace instead. Pastor, my daughter is grieving and pushing everyone away. We're worried about her. Could you help us bring the family together? Maybe a prayer meeting. Something gentle. Pastor Grace listened. She nodded slowly and said, I'll think about it, Linda. Later that night, alone in her office, Grace Bennett sat quietly and remembered 3 small caskets and 4 empty chairs. She thought very carefully about what gentle meant to a woman like Linda Ashford. 2 weeks later, Tom Whitfield called me, Bianca. I pitched a feature story to my editor about DUI victim advocacy in Connecticut. I told her Jake was my friend. She agreed, but only if I focus on the larger system, not only your personal story. Your foundation would be the center of it. What exists now? What doesn't? Where the gaps are, your work fits right into that. Would you be open to an interview? I hesitated. Public attention was never something I wanted. I was a night shift ER nurse. My idea of speaking in public was reading triage notes to a doctor. At 3 a.m, But Tom was not asking me to perform. He was asking me to speak honestly. And honesty was the only thing I had left that felt steady. Okay, I said. But I'm not doing this for attention. I know, he answered. That's exactly why it matters. We met at a coffee shop near the hospital. Tom placed a recorder between our cups and let me talk. I told him about Jake, about the stitches, about the scar question, about the Sunday evenings behind a locked office door that later turned out to be insurance research. I told him about Lily's butterflies and Noah's worn-out bear. I told him about the foundation and the 5 families we had already chosen for our first round of support. Then he asked quietly, "You arranged the funeral alone?" I stirred my coffee slowly. Jake's friends were there, my co-workers, my pastor. Tom waited. He understood silence. My birth family wasn't, I added. He did not push me. He just wrote it down. Before he left, he asked, "Can I include that detail?" I thought about it for one breath. You can write what is true. I won't ask you to hide anything, but I won't add extra drama either. Around the same time, and I only found this out later, Linda was on the phone with Megan. Her voice sounded sharp and tense, like someone watching control slip away. "We need to speak to Bianca before other people start telling our story for us." Megan let out a short laugh. "What story? We didn't do anything wrong." "Exactly," Linda replied. "And we need to make sure people understand that." Tom told me the article would take a few more weeks. He had to interview other families and check facts before the editors would publish it. The Ashfords had no idea it was coming. Linda moved quickly. Within a week, she had Pastor Grace cornered after Sunday service. "Pastor, I've been praying about this. Could we hold a small reconciliation meeting? Just family and a few close friends. Nothing formal. Just prayer and conversation." Pastor Grace agreed, but she added one clear condition. "I will not pressure Bianca, Linda. This must be her decision." "Of course," my mother said smoothly. "Of course." Then she went home and called every woman in her contact list. By Saturday, what was supposed to be a small family gathering had grown to 20 people. The entire Women's Fellowship Board, 3 couples from the neighborhood, and Carol Dunning, who Linda invited on purpose because Carol's earlier question at the potluck still bothered her. Linda wanted an audience. She wanted witnesses. She wanted people who would see her cry and reach out and then decide that I was the difficult one. The invitation came to me in a text from a number I did not know. Linda had borrowed someone's phone. "Bianca, Pastor Grace is organizing a family prayer meeting this Sunday. Everyone at church wants to see you. Please come for your children's memory." For your children's memory, she used their names like money. I called Pastor Grace right away. "Did you arrange this?" Grace sighed. "Your mother asked for a small meeting." I agreed to that. But I just learned she invited half the congregation. "Bianca, I'm worried about what she's planning." I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and thought for a long time. The old version of me would have stayed home. She would have protected herself quietly. But the old Bianca would also have brought a casserole to Thanksgiving 3 weeks. After burying her children, I was not that woman anymore. "I'll be there," I told Grace. "Not for my mother. For myself." Grace was silent for a moment. Then she said softly, "I need you to know something. I told your mother I was at the funeral that day. She didn't blink." "Bianca, she didn't even blink. Sunday, 2 o'clock, the fellowship room at Greenfield Community Church." I walked in and counted 22 people. Chairs set in a loose half circle. A coffee urn on a folding table. A plate of cookies someone had brought, because in Connecticut even ambushes come with baked goods. My mother sat in the front row. She wore her lavender church dress, the one she saved for moments when she wanted to look gentle. Her eyes were already red. A white handkerchief rested neatly on her lap, ready. My father sat beside her, shoulders straight, staring at a spot on the carpet. Megan stood near the back wall with her arms crossed. She looked tense, like she would rather be anywhere else. The moment I sat down, Linda stood up. She did not wait for Pastor Grace to begin. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice shaking in a careful way. "As many of you know, our family has gone through a terrible tragedy. My daughter Bianca lost her husband and her children in a horrible accident. We have tried to be there for her, but she has pushed us away." She touched the handkerchief under one eye. "We are heartbroken. All we want is our daughter back."
If you like the video, then subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you.